In today's Meandering Thought lecture, we discuss the predictable human body and the challenge to free will. Human beings possess a powerful and deeply ingrained sense of freedom. In everyday experience, we take ourselves to be autonomous agents, as individuals who deliberate, choose, and act according to our own intentions. This intuitive conviction underlies not only personal identity, but also moral responsibility, legal accountability, and social life more broadly, at least for most of the normal members of our society. Yet, this sense of freedom gives rise to one of the most enduring philosophical problems, the apparent conflict between our lived experience of free will and the strict natural laws that govern the universe, and more specifically, our own bodies. At the heart of the free will debate lies a central dilemma. On the one hand, human beings experience themselves as free and self-determining. On the other hand, modern science presents a picture of the world as governed by causal regularities with mathematical precision, from fundamental physics to biochemistry to neurophysiology. If the human body, and by extension the human brain, operates according to the deterministic and precise natural laws, it becomes increasingly difficult to understand or accept how genuine human agency or free will could exist within such a system. Let's first take a look at the deterministic architecture of the human body. At the most basic level, the human body functions in accordance with strict biochemical and physical principles. Beneath the complexity of biological processes lie the laws of physics, which govern molecular interactions, energy transfer, and structural organization. Human growth and development, for example, are largely shaped by genetic inheritance and hormonal regulation. Height, body composition, metabolic tendencies, and susceptibility to diseases are strongly influenced by genetic and epigenetic factors that operate independently of conscious choice. Some of the clearest examples of biological determinism can be found in the body's reflexive and regulatory systems. Simple neurological reflexes are among the most predictable mechanisms in human physiology. When a person touches a hot surface, an involuntary muscle contraction withdraws the hand before conscious awareness of pain arises. Similarly, the knee-jerk reflex follows a fixed neural pathway that bypasses conscious deliberation altogether. These responses are not merely habitual, they are hardwired, deterministic reactions to specific stimuli. Autonomic physiological regulation provides further illustration. A drop in blood pressure reliably triggers an increase in heart rate and vasoconstrictions to maintain adequate circulation. Exposure to cold temperatures deterministically initiates shivering and constriction of blood vessels in the skin to preserve core body heat. The rhythmic beating of the heart follows highly regular, law-governed patterns visible in the characteristic waveforms of the electrocardiogram. Likewise, circadian rhythms regulate fluctuations in body temperature, metabolism, immune function, cognitive performance, sleep cycles, and hormonal secretion with remarkable regularity. Other body systems exhibit the same causal orderliness. Muscular contractions propel food through the digestive tract via peristalsis, independent of conscious control. The kidneys filter blood and regulate electrolyte balance through finely tuned physical and chemical processes. Even at the molecular level, protein folding follows deterministic energy minimization principles, whereby amino acid chains reliably settle into stable three-dimensional structures dictated by physical constraints. Many basic physical characteristics and defects are similarly determined. Eye color, skin pigmentation, congenital disorders, and even certain advantageous traits, such as athletic potential or high cognitive aptitude, are strongly influenced by genetic endowment. Collectively, these examples suggest that much of what constitutes human body operates as a predictable, law-governed system rather than a freely directed one. So we may ask, is human agency any different from the way our body works? Given the pervasive determinism evident in bodily processes, a natural question arises: is human agency itself subject to similar constraints? In other words, are our decisions and actions governed by strict causal rules in the same way as our reflexes and physiological functions? If so, it would seem that we are not truly in the driver's seat, despite our strong subjective impressions to the contrary. Contemporary science has increasingly revealed that human behavior is more predictable than we are inclined to believe. Although we experience ourselves as making conscious choices and deliberate decisions, a growing body of evidence suggests that many of these choices originate unconsciously and may be reliably anticipated in advance. One of the most influential contributions to this debate comes from the work of an American neuroscientist, Benjamin Libet, in the 1980s. In a series of experiments conducted in 1985, Libet demonstrated that neural signals associated with motor preparation, commonly referred to as the readiness potential, could be detected approximately 0.3 seconds before participants reported a conscious intention to move. Following this neural preparation, an additional delay of roughly 0.2 seconds occurred before the muscles executed the movement itself. These findings imply that the initiation of voluntary action begins unconsciously, followed by conscious awareness of the intention, finally, mechanical body actions. Neural activity predictive of a choice appears before conscious awareness of the decision, suggesting that consciousness does not initiate action, but instead becomes aware of it after the causal process is already underway. On this interpretation, intentions are formed in the brain prior to conscious experience, and what we perceive as deliberate decision may be a post hoc awareness of an intention already set in motion in the brain. If this account is correct, the familiar feeling of conscious control of bodily actions may be illusory. What we experience as free will could be an after-the-fact rationalization of unconscious neural activity rather than its cause. Supporting this view, research by American psychologist Brian Knudson on emotion and decision-making has shown that patterns of neural activation can predict purchasing decisions before individuals consciously report having made the choice. Numerous other studies in psychology and neuroscience similarly indicate that behavior is often driven by subconscious processes, even as consciousness insists on claiming authorship. What is the philosophical implications and ongoing disputes around these findings? Not all scholars accept the strongest deterministic interpretation of these findings. Some critics argue that Libet's experiments demonstrates only the brain's readiness to act, not the decision itself. On this view, the readiness potential may reflect a general preparatory state, leaving room for conscious intervention at a later stage. Others suggest that conscious veto power, sometimes called free wants, could still play a meaningful role in human agency. Nevertheless, the implications of these findings are profound. If one accepts the principle that only physical states can cause physical effects, then mental states, such as beliefs, intentions, and desires, may not be genuine causes of action at all. Instead, they may be byproducts or epiphenomena arising from the action of complex neural networks. Under such a framework, free will does not participate in decision-making in any causally efficacious sense. This raises the unsettling possibility that free will may not exist, or that it exists only as a subjective illusion. If so, where does human consciousness fit within the causal structure of the universe? Some argue that the capacity for conscious deliberation itself constitutes free will, implying that consciousness can intervene in an otherwise deterministic system. We will discuss this view further when we come back to the topics of artificial intelligence in later lectures. Yet, this position risks invoking a form of magical intervention that lacks a clear scientific explanation. Moreover, it merely relocates the problem. If conscious decisions ground free will, what determines those conscious decisions? Conclusion: the tension between human freedom and biological determinism remains unresolved. The predictable nature of the human body, coupled with growing evidence for unconscious decision-making, challenges traditional conception of agency and autonomy. These questions are inseparable from the broader philosophical debate over determinism, whether all events are necessitated by prior causes and its compatibility with moral responsibility and human self-understanding and human agency. These issues will be the topic of our discussions in the next few lectures.